we are live for yet another back porch session. Gonna wait to see who joins us here. My name is Curt Mercadante. We are here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. You can see the red rocks behind me. We're here every weekend. We try to be with these back porch sessions where I spend some time with you. As you join us, if you've joined us before, you know the drill. Jump in. Share your city, your state, your name, your town, where in the world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. And I'm going to try and see if I can see who's joining us today. Jump in, say hello. Don't be afraid. Let's see, someone's joining us here. Kenneth. Kenneth, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in your surface sharing with us. Kenneth, I always love your comments. Savor the flavor of this morning. Kenneth, where in the world are you joining us from? And what's at least one thing you're grateful for this morning? I tell you, I'm grateful for yet another sunrise. I get up in the morning. I watch the sunrises. I got a little chair over there and I watch it. Can't see it over here, just over this mountain in the distance. And one of the reasons I'm grateful for the sunrise is because I can still see it. We have some wildfires here. We're in Sedona. We're surrounded by wildfires. And so if I can see that sunrise, I mean the wildfire. That means the wildfire isn't getting too close today. Jane, Plano, Texas. Grateful for my job. Jane, thank you for joining us. Sugarland, Texas. Wow, we got a lot of Texans joining us today. What is it? It's about 8 a.m. It's just after 6 a.m. here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. Wow, we got Victor from Moscow, Russia. We always go international here on this show, and I love it. Stephen English, longtime listener, first-time caller from Austin, Texas. Texas is in the house today. The Southwest is representing. Thank you so much for joining us. Stephen, what is one thing, at least one thing you're grateful for today? Victor, what is one thing you are grateful for today? Texans love freedom. So do we here in Arizona. I don't know if I consider myself an Arizonan yet, but you know, we do what we can. You know, I love freedom. Kenneth, I'm grateful to be alive another day to experience all that life has to offer me. Kenneth, I love it. Roy, Kennedy, New York, just being here. Roy, thank you so much for joining us today. What part of New York are you in? Are you in New York City? I'll tell you what. Spending my mornings here on the weekend, the back porch sessions energizes me. Energizes me. I love spending time with you, seeing people join us from around the world. We have a number of topics we're going to talk today, starting with fear, love, and creativity. I'll get that to a moment. We see who's joining us here. Kenneth Dunner, Stephen English, savor the flavor, the awesomeness in you, baby. Thanks. Listen, as you join us, you know the drill. Maybe you don't know the drill. Your first name, at least, your city, your state, your town, where in the world are joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. So let's hop into this. We're going to start with fear, love, and creativity. First, I'm going to give a shout out to Stephen English. Grateful for all the amazing friends I've made on LinkedIn and all the new clients I am serving. I'm waiting on a client who's 3 minutes late for our session. Thought I'd say howdy. Stephen, thanks for joining us here. Give a shout out to Jane. Everything's bigger in Texas. Yes, absolutely. And I just got to highlight Kenneth's comment. Savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you, sir. Savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you, Kenneth. Originally from Harlem. Well, let's jump in right now. Newton, Connecticut, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about fear, love, and creativity. I'm going to share a link here in a moment. Because fear, love, and creativity, it's the topic of a new podcast project. I'm putting it right in the links here. You can go to the link, if I can spell subscribe correctly. And it's a new private podcast project, meaning to get it, it's not going to be on Apple. It's not going to be on Spotify. You got to subscribe at the link I just put in the comments because I want people to be intentional about listening to this. I don't want any of those fake stats that I get from Apple and Spotify. When people hop in, I want them to be intentional. I want them to know they're subscribing and I want it to be personal. And what this project is about is this. Fear and love are two perhaps the most potent, powerful emotional states, right? And neither one is good or bad. Right? Fear It's a natural survival mechanism that we have, and it can save our lives. But often we find ourselves trapped in a constant state of fear and anxiety. And that's versus a state of love. And which emotional state is best to allow our creativity to flow? Because as human beings, our creative flow is our most potent power. Here's the deal. As human beings, whatever challenge you're facing right now, you can think your way out of it. Human beings shouldn't even be here right now, right? We should have never made it out of the caves to survive against the beasts, the wild, the environment, whatever it is. It wasn't our brawn that allowed us to survive. It was our brains. It was our creative thinking. So whatever challenge you find yourself in right now, guess what? You have the ability to think your way out of it, whether you believe it or not. But when you come from a state of fear, you're dumber. You don't have the ability to think creatively. You get in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? And you're in a survival mechanism and you focus so much on what you don't want. You're playing defense all the time. You don't make creative decisions. We've seen that over the last year and a half, some decisions that were made out of fear instead of creativity. We're going to lower this dot on the graph here, but there's going to be 30 other dots that go up. Do we not care about that? When you come from a state of love and you focus on what's the most creative decision to help everyone involved, that's when I think you come up with the best decisions, the most creative decisions. Now, we're investigating that in my new podcast project, Fear, Love, and Creativity. It is a private podcast. Again, you got to subscribe to get it in your inbox. We're launching this Thursday, July 1st. There's some solo episodes, but we have some incredible guests. 2 weeks ago, I interviewed Randy Gage. Now, Randy is a 4 times New York Times best-selling author. He's a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. His newest book is Radical Rebirth. We had an incredible discussion. You know, he and I disagree on a number of things, but we can both think critically, think creatively, and arrive at different opinions on things. Well, we talk about that. I shared a clip here on LinkedIn earlier this week in which Randy and I talk about your core beliefs, your habits, some of those emotions, and how they're programmed into you as early as 7. Yes, he says he's worked with people who are going through a divorce or a bad marriage. And that belief about sex and sexuality, relationships, money, all of it was programmed in when we were young, whether you want to believe it or not. Now, the good news is you can reprogram. But if you're programmed for fear, then you're going to be in that fear and anxious state all the time. And you're going to make decisions based on that. You're going to make defensive decisions instead of what do you want? I have a client I just onboarded this week. And I asked him that question, what is it you want? Don't tell me what you don't want. Don't focus so much on what you don't want. And that leads me to a guest I interviewed this week as well, who's going to be featured on the Fear, Love, and Creativity podcast, Erin Urban, career growth strategist. She studied leadership psychology at Cornell. And she said the key to making love-based, heart-based decisions that are more creative is to step back and focus on what you want instead of what you don't want. What you want instead of what you don't want. Right? We talk about, listen, some of the things we talk about in the podcast may piss you off, but hopefully it makes you think. You know, over the past year, we saw people so focused on lowering the dot of COVID. We're going to lock everyone down. And now what we're seeing is a number of other things that happened, dots that rose, including suicide rates amongst teenagers. And pre-COVID, there was a big focus on mental health and suicides. And now it seems as if when you talk about the suicide rate in relation to lockdowns and isolation, you're a conspiracy theorist. If you think that, is that out of a state of fear or love? I would submit to you that when thinking about these things out of a state of love, you can look at multiple dots, multiple data points and say, what's best for all of humanity? What's best for all of humanity? And to do that, you have to make love-based decisions. You know, there's a show on Netflix, a new series called Sweet Tooth. Now, they claim it was filmed and written. Now, it's based on a DC comic from like 2009. They claim the script for this was written and it was filmed before the pandemic. But there's things about masks and checking things, people with thermometers and all that. And there's a scene in there where 9 years in after this pandemic, they're having a party, right? And one of the telltale signs of whether or not you have the virus is your pinky shaking, right? And so they go to this party, they notice one guy's pinky shaking, they take him, they wrap him in cellophane, and they burn him in his house, right? And it got me thinking, we can confuse fear and love. Oh, well, out of love for myself and my family, I'm going to take out and kill this entire town. We've seen this happen. Fear-based decisions in history, the Holocaust, the Japanese internment, I would submit the lockdowns. There's a number of things that, and societies love to say, well, we could never do that. We're so much better than past societies. That type of thinking is dangerous because we think it could never happen again. We could never do that again. But you know what? Fear is such a strong emotion, and it puts us in a state of being defensive, of protection mode, of survival mode. And humans are capable of incredible things when we get in a state of love and we think creatively, but we are capable of some horrendous things when we are in a state of fear. So fear, love, and creativity, there's a link in the comments. Please subscribe. Someone else I interviewed this week is a legend, Bob Berg, co-author of the Go-Giver series of books, sold millions and millions of copies, the book Adversaries into Allies. And if you've ever watched Bob, he's just calm in a sea of weirdness. This last year and a half, he is calm. I saw someone try to cancel him on Twitter. He remained calm. And so we talk about how to remain calm amidst conflict, because in conflict, it's where that cortisol rises. It's where we can get in that state of fear. It's where we can let anger take over. And we don't persuade people. We don't influence people. We fight with people. So I talk with Bob about how to lower the temperature, how to engage in those discussions that move things forward. Because right now, we've seen it over the last year and a half. Humanity is not divided as cable news, as MSNBC and Fox News would have you believe. Humanity is not as divided as social media would have you believe. But you see, fear sells ads, fear gets clicks, fear sells votes. So most times it takes turning off the noise. If you're someone who has cable news playing all day in the background, and I know some of you do, you've got that Fox News or MSNBC playing in the background all day, you watch the news before you go to bed, guess what? It is programming you for fear, programming you for anger. I challenge you for 2 weeks. Erin Urban and I talked about this on the podcast. She challenged one of her clients to do this. Turn off the cable news. Turn off the news for 2 weeks. Focus on your signal. The news is programming you for fear. We've seen it over the last year and a half. People putting on their jerseys. I'm pro-vax. I'm anti-vax. I'm pro this. I'm that. And we want to fight. The media wants us to fight. Turn it off. Allow your fear mechanism to go down. Take a deep breath and start acting out of love. You will make better decisions. You will make better decisions. You will make more creative decisions. And as I said at the beginning of this segment, as a human being, you have the power to think your way creatively out of any challenge. That is your superpower, whether you want to believe it or not. But in order to allow that creativity to flow, you've got to function. You've got to behave. You've got to make decisions from a love state instead of a fear state. So please subscribe. If you don't find the link in the comments, put creativity. Just write the word creativity in the comments. I'll send you the link. You can subscribe. Again, we launch the Fear, Love, and Creativity private podcast this Thursday, July 1st. So thank everyone for joining. And if you're joining in the middle of this, we're taking a break in between segments. I would love for you to throw in your first name, at least, your city, your state, your town, where in the world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you are grateful for today. Thank you for being here, sharing some coffee with me today. Who do we have joining us right now? I see a number of you out there. Any new folks? Any new folks who have joined us here? I see a couple people joining us. I see the clicker. Who's out there? Share your name. Don't be a lurker. Jump in. Life is about being intentional. Don't be a lurker. Jump in. Share your name, your city, your state, your town, where your world you're joining us from, and at least one thing you're grateful for. Lamar Woods. Good morning, Curt. I agree. The news is often a constant stream of negativity and fear. You have to control your environment and your mindset. Absolutely, Lamar. I know some people who just get so angry, and over the last several years, they become so angry. They were never like that. And they don't think the news is affecting them. Oh, I'm strong enough. I just watch that for information. But when you see a constant stream of negative shit day and night, and people not even reporting on facts, just reporting on opinion, wanting you to be angry at the other side, right versus left, red versus blue, pro-vax versus anti-vax, this versus that, whatever it is, guess what? They're getting you in that state of fear. You are dumber when you're in that state of fear. You are not making good decisions when you're in that state of fear. I'm even talking about the weather. Gosh, the Weather Channel has just turned into clickbait. One big clickbait. They're naming winter storms. When we lived in Charleston, South Carolina, they would start like 2 weeks before with the fear porn. There's so much fear porn out there. I see it on LinkedIn too. It's coming into LinkedIn. You know why? Because it gets you to click. It gets you to give LinkedIn your money. Looking at what's happening today or the news. It used to be all business. Now it's fear porn. It's politics. Turn it off, tune it out, focus on your signal. You deserve better. You deserve to operate from a state of love. You deserve to make better decisions, creative decisions, and you don't do that when you're in a state of fear. And we have been in a collective state of fear for the past year, and it's time for it to end. And if you're watching this now, I challenge you, turn off the news for the next 2 weeks. Suck the money dry from the cable news, from social media. You are better than that. You deserve more than that. Because when you get sucked into the fear porn, when you get sucked in by news, I call it newsertainment, when you get sucked in by the social media companies, guess what? You are a prisoner. You turn yourself into a victim of them. You are not in control, whether or not you want to believe it, because they are subconsciously programming you. As I said at the beginning, we're all programmed since we're young. But if you allow yourself to continue to be programmed by the news, then that's on you. You can't sit there and blame the media. It's on you. Take the remote control, turn the off button, and start enjoying life. People around you need you to make better decisions. You need you to make better decisions. Society needs you to make better decisions. And they don't need you to be a victim of the fear porn and the clickbait and the news. So jump in, the Fear, Love, and Creativity private podcast. You only get it if you subscribe. There's a link in the comments. If you don't see the link, just put creativity in the comments. I'll send you the link. You can subscribe. We got a lot of great guests. As I remember, Randy Gage, Hall of Fame speaker, New York Times bestselling author. We just interviewed Aaron Urban. We got Bob Berg. I'm interviewing Jordan Gross coming up. If you don't know Jordan, he's incredible. We got some neuroscientists coming up. We have an incredible lineup. It launches this Thursday, but you're only going to get it if you subscribe. Zoran, good morning. Bradenton, Florida here. Great. What's one thing you're grateful for today? Zoran, if I'm saying your name correctly. Good morning, Curt. I see a good morning there, but I can't actually see who that's from. Share your name, your city, your state, your town, because StreamYard, through which I record this, sometimes makes it impossible for me to see who's joining us. What's one thing you are grateful for? Larry, welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Roy, we got Stephen, Victor, Jane, Kenneth. Let's see. Who else? Zoran, thank you. Lamar. Oh, hey, Matt. What's going on, Matt Walls? How you doing? Here we're doing. We're going to highlight Lamar's comment there. So I'd like to move on to your Freedom Index. Now, I'm not going to name the entire Freedom Index, but it's a list of 10 statements, right? It's a list of 10 statements. Wow, Robert, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Your Freedom Index, you know, I used to ask people, I had a podcast called Freedom Mindset Radio. And I used to ask everyone, you know, what does freedom mean to you? What does freedom mean to you? And the key part of that is, what does it mean to you? You can't define your sense of freedom what it means to someone else. You can't define your sense of freedom what it means to your parents, your loved ones, the people around you, society, because there's enough scarcity pimps in society who would make you think that freedom is selfish. And so what does it mean to you? It's going to mean different things to every people. You know, my wife and I, we sold our home and most of our possessions. We hit the road. We've been traveling around. As you can see, we're here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. We took our 4 kids on the road. We're crazy. That's what freedom means to us. It's part of what freedom means to us. But what does it mean to you? And so when you look through what it means to you and you try to determine the life that you want to live, I've come up with something called the Freedom Index. Now, we're going to be highlighting this on LinkedIn over the next 10 days, but it's a list of 10 statements that you can use to determine how free and fulfilled you are in your life. So I'm going to read 10 statements off, and for each statement, give it a rating between 1 and 10. 1 means I disagree with it. 10 means I agree, and how that statement applies to you. Now, again, this is your Freedom Index, and as you go, rate it. For each statement, rating between 1 and 10, 1 meaning disagree, 10 meaning strongly agree. And at the end, you're going to add those all up, divide them, and that's going to be your Freedom Index. So let's start right now. Number 1 is, my days are filled with things I want to do versus things I compelled to do. Are your days filled with things you want to do versus things you're compelled to do? Because if you're living a freedom lifestyle, your days are full of wants instead of compulsion. Now, if I want to get in shape, I may feel compelled to eat better and go for my daily walks. That's different. You're compelling yourself based on something you want to do versus going to a job every day, feeling compelled to get up and sit in traffic all day and go to a job that you hate. That's compulsion. So are your days filled with things you want to do versus things you're compelled to do? Again, for each of these statements, give it a rating between 1 and 10. Next statement is, my health and fitness are excellent. Are your health and fitness excellent? And I don't just mean your waistline, and I don't just mean, you're hiding a number of health issues by taking 8 prescription drugs. My gosh, over the last year and a half, how many people have we heard? Well, they were in good health and they died of COVID. How many prescription drugs were they on? How much movement did they get in a day? Or were they a couch potato? Right? Were they on an inflammatory diet? My gosh, we see, oh, we're going to ban menthol cigarettes. We're going to do this and that. How about sugar? How about curtailing sugar? How about having just a nationwide push to get sugar out of our lives? Sugar is a killer. I would tell you, over the last year and a half, the sugar has killed more people than the virus, because the virus attacks people who are inflammatory, sugar-filled diets. So are your health and fitness excellent? That's number 2 of the Freedom Index, because if your health and fitness aren't excellent, you're turning yourself into a prisoner of Big Pharma. You're turning yourself into a prisoner of poor health. And if we've seen that over the last year, oh my gosh. If the last year and a half has not motivated you to take control of your health and fitness, I don't know what to tell you. Number 3, my relationship with my spouse or partner is excellent. Relationships are so important. Harvard's done a study, it's now like 84 years old, of human relationships. They started it with undergrads 80 plus years ago, and they asked these undergrads back then, what's going to be the key to fulfillment in your life? And back then, of course, these 20-somethings said, well, it's going to be money, it's going to be status, it's going to be awards. 80 plus years later, not even close. Relationships are number 1. Relationships are the number 1 key to fulfillment. Your relationships are important. So your relationship's excellent? If not, mark it. 1 to 10. We're doing their Freedom Index now. 10 statements. You rate between 1 and 10 how much it applies to your life, how you agree with it. And at the end, we're going to add them up, divide them, and you come up with your Freedom Index. So my relationship with my partner is excellent. Number 4, I spend enough time investing in myself. Or do you constantly say, I don't have time. I don't have enough time to get to the gym. I don't have enough time to read the book. I don't have enough time to get sleep. I spend enough time investing myself. Do you? If so, give it a 10. If it's so, give it a 5. If you disagree with that, give it a 1. Next statement in the Freedom Index. I'm fulfilled every single day, not just nights and weekends. Or do you just live for nights and weekends? I'm here to tell you that life is too short just to live for nights and weekends. You should be fulfilled every day. One of my least favorite sayings is, thank God it's Friday. No, thank God it's Monday. Thank God it's Tuesday. Thank God we started this podcast by asking you, what are you grateful for today? And I urge people, in my book, wake up in the morning and ask yourself 2 questions. What's awesome about today? And the second question is, what will make today even more awesome? You start with awesome, but that second question and saying, I got to do this, I got to have that call, I got to have this meeting, and I hate doing it. Instead of starting with negativity, you start with awesome and you go from there. It acknowledges, that there's some things that could be more awesome, but you start with awesome and you go from there. So are you fulfilled every single day? Or do you just live for nights and weekends? Again, we're doing the Freedom Index, 10 statements. Rate them between 1 and 10. How often you agree with it, how much it applies to you. This next one, I've traveled to at least one place I really wanted to go, not just was compelled to go for work or family or something in the past year. Yes, even in the midst of the pandemic. I know people who are locked down in Canada who still go places and hike. They get outside and they hike. We're traveling around here in the US. We can't go to Italy. We can't go certain places we want to go, but there are places right in your town where you can travel. But once this opens up, have you traveled? Travel broadens your mind. Travel broadens your horizons. Travel allows you to learn about other people and other cultures, which we could use right now. Next statement in the Freedom Index. I have a clearly defined vision for my life. I have a clearly defined vision of my life. If that applies to you, put a 10. If not, put a 1. If you're in the middle, put a 5. Or do you bounce around in life from temporary objective to temporary objective like a pinball without any guiding star? That vision is whether you die in 20 seconds, 20 minutes, or 20 years. What is that sentence that sums up the life you want to live? Not a life you want to live in the future, but when you have that vision, you're working to live it every single day. It not only signals to you what to say yes to, but what to say no to, because if it doesn't fit your vision, throw it out the window. Do you have a clearly defined vision for your life? If so, give it a 10. If in the middle, give it a 5. If not at all, give it a 1. The next statement in the Freedom Index. My spouse or significant other partner and I have at least 2 date nights per month. 2 date nights per month. I did this in a Facebook group once, and 50% said, only 2 date nights per month? The other 50% said, I could never find time to do that. If you can't find time to have a date night with the person you love, then I want you to reevaluate your relationship. Just 2 date nights a month, and it doesn't have to be a fancy restaurant. Take a walk at the beach. Do something segmented, away from the kids, away from other people, where you and your spouse, your partner, your significant other are alone, and you're having a good time away from the craziness of the world. And if you're someone who says only 2 date nights, that's wonderful. It may sound unromantic. We schedule our date nights. We make them happen. We put them on the schedule because it is that important. Relationships are that important. So the next statement, my job fulfills me. My job fulfills me. Does your job fulfill you? If so, give it a 10, if not a 1. And I mean fulfillment, not just waking up in the morning and rationalizing going to a job. Well, it's okay. Sometimes it pays the bills. That's not fulfillment. Is it a job where you wake up in the morning excited to go? Is it something where you feel like your job enables you to serve the people you want to serve and provide your unique and fulfilling impact? If not, give it a 1. Again, we're going through 10 statements of the Freedom Index. For each statement, rate it between 1 and 10, how much it applies to your life. And at the end, you're going to add them all up. And then you're going to divide it. And you're going to get your Freedom Index. So the final statement is this. My work, family, and self are in alignment. My work, family, and self are in alignment. And notice I didn't use that word, work-life balance, that term work-life balance, because work-life balance is bullshit. It doesn't exist. It is mythical. There's not work over here and life over here. There's just life. You've probably heard me say it before, and I'm going to keep repeating it because I see people, I want work-life balance. Life is not a seesaw where I'm going to put it all into work. In life, there's just life. There's 3 facets of life. There's work, yes. There's relationships, and there's self-care. And the key isn't balance. It's aligning the 3 in a way that works for you. Next week, we're going to talk more about alignment with a special activity for you, but it's about aligning the 3 facets of your life. And so that last statement of the Freedom Index is, are your work, family, and self, your work, relationship, and self in alignment? Now, if you've been with us here through the 10 statements, I want you to add up Each rating you gave for each statement, divide it, and that's your freedom index. Listen, you deserve a 10. You deserve a freedom index of 10. You deserve to live a life you actually want, a life of freedom and fulfillment. If you're at a 5, you deserve a 10. If you're at a 9, you deserve a 10, and you can start working for it right now. Here's the deal. Right now, if you're living a life in which you're not free and fulfilled, that's on you, because it's based on the decisions and choices you've made up to this point, whether you want to believe it or not. Maybe that's tough medicine, but here's the great news. The life you live this afternoon, tomorrow, next week, and 5 years from now will be the accumulation of the decisions you start making right now. So are you going to make decisions geared toward giving you a life of freedom and fulfillment to get that freedom index from a 5 to a 10? If you're just joining us, go back. I listed 10 statements of the freedom index. We're going to be rolling them out here on LinkedIn over the next 10 days as well. And for each statement, you give it a rating between 1 and 10, how much it applies to you. You add it up and you get your freedom index. You deserve a 10. You deserve a life of freedom and fulfillment. I want to give a shout out to a number of people here who have joined us. We've got Robert, who is grateful for an early morning bike ride with my son to the river. Again, whether you're joining us live or you're joining the replay, jump in, share your name, your city, your state, your town, at least one thing you're grateful for. Even if you're joining us later today or tomorrow, still jump in. Kenneth and Robert are going back and forth. That's wonderful. We got Jared Best Mitchell. How you doing, Jared? Thank you for joining us. We got Justin Weedman. Good morning from Ocean City. You joined us from Ocean City as promised. Always grateful for my family and health. That is wonderful, Justin. Thank you so much. Kimberly McCoy, thank you. Kimberly, where in the world are you joining us from, and what's at least one thing you're grateful for today? We went a little bit over on time today, but I think that's fine. We still have people joining us. Again, thank you whether you're joining the replay or you're watching this. To recap, we talked about fear, love, and creativity, and the best emotional state to make those creative decisions. We're launching a private podcast, launching this Thursday, called Fear, Love, and Creativity. We got Randy Gage, New York Times bestselling author. We got Bob Berg, bestselling author, Hall of Fame keynote speaker. We've interviewed Aaron Urban. We have Jordan Gross coming up. We have Melissa Malanek coming up. We have a number of great people exploring decision-making from a fear state versus the love state, and how to make better, more creative decisions. You can subscribe at the link in the comments, or put creativity, write creativity in the comments right now, and I'll send you the link to sign up. Then we started talking about your freedom index, and I listed 10 statements. And your job was for each statement to rate between 1 and 10 how much that statement applied to you. And at the end, add them all up, divide them, you get your freedom index. You deserve a 10. You deserve a life of freedom and fulfillment. If you missed that, please go back. And right now, I'd like to throw it out to you. I'm here enjoying my coffee amidst the red rocks of Sedona. If you have any questions, please let me know. And Kimberly joins us from Chicago. She's grateful for the fresh rain in the city. My goodness, we have Ocean City. We have a number of people from Texas joining us, right? We have Charleston, South Carolina. We've had Moscow, Russia. We got Florida in the house, Connecticut in the house. This is wonderful. One of the reasons I love doing this is I wake up and I get to travel around the world with all of you. It's great. I wonder, that's one thing I'm grateful for this morning. Kimberly, great. Kimberly texted or wrote in creativity, which means I'm going to send her the link to subscribe to our new Fear, Love, and Creativity podcast. It's a private podcast. If you'd like the link, put creativity or find the link in the comments and sign up. Worldwide man, exactly. Any questions from anyone that you all have about anything we've discussed here, or anything in general, by the way? I'm an open book. So please ask me any questions. I'll sit here, sip my coffee, and see what you're doing. What does everyone have planned for this weekend, by the way? While I'm sitting here waiting for questions. Big plans this weekend. We're driving up to Flagstaff. I think it's about 40 minutes. See what's going on up there. Looks like a beautiful town. Again, here in beautiful Sedona, Arizona. What do you got planned this weekend? And any questions? I'll hang on here for a minute or two. If there's no questions, I'll just log off. Kimberly, Justin, Jared, what do you got planned this weekend? Robert has a great quote. How are you? We're making it. That's about all we can do, isn't it? Say people who have everything they need to be fulfilled, but they're not, right? It's kind of like, I'm just hanging on. Life is just about hanging on. And I've talked about this before, but there's so much struggle porn on LinkedIn, right? Oh, I'm just going to talk about the struggle, and everyone's going to talk about the struggle. And then we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, and everyone's supposed to have imposter syndrome. And a lot of that stems from the fact that you think you're supposed to struggle. And so you can become successful without the struggle, which is possible and preferable. But then you have imposter syndrome because you didn't struggle, so you didn't feel you didn't earn it. And then they foment that social media culture. Tune out the struggle porn, turn out the fear porn, right? You don't have to struggle to be successful. You don't have to struggle to be fulfilled. If you have struggled and overcome it, that's awesome. That is wonderful, but you don't have to struggle. And there are some people out there who think they do. Tough weekend, celebration of life for my dad. Well, here's to your dad. I wish you the best. Prayers are coming your way. And have a wonderful celebration of life for your dad. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning. Kimberly, cleaning my cloud, Dropbox cleaning files, doing things I've been putting off. Well, hey, everyone, I want to thank you all for joining us on this fine morning, wherever in the world you're joining us from. We had people from around the world, across the country. That is excellent. I want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Saturday with another Back Porch Session again. There's a link in the comments to subscribe to the Fear, Love, and Creativity podcast that launches this Thursday. The only way you get it is if you subscribe via email. We also talked about your Freedom Index today. So I look forward to seeing many of you subscribe to that. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you throughout the week on LinkedIn. Please have a rest of your weekend in which you are present with yourself, the people around you, and with the world. Thank you so much. My name is Curt Mercadante. This has been another Back Porch Session.